Hello, and welcome to the Well-Read Poem. The following 6 readings are an encore performance of previously recorded episodes of the Well-Read Poem for your enjoyment. Thank you very much for listening.
Reading is interpretation. A poem well read is a poem well understood. In this podcast, brought to you by the Literary Life Podcast, poet Thomas Banks will help you increase your love and understanding of poetry. Each short season of weekly episodes will be connected by a particular theme or focus, and in addition to modeling good reading, Mr. Banks will introduce the poet and provide some light explication and analysis, with an emphasis on both form and meaning. Poetry is not a silent endeavor. It's meant to be heard, and more importantly, it's meant to be recited out loud. Join us now as poet Thomas Banks presents the Well-Read Poem.
Hello, and welcome to the Well-Read Poem. For this last reading in the Christmas season, I'm going to be reading you a John Betjeman poem simply entitled Christmas. And I know that Christmas was a few days ago, but anyway, coming in here a little bit late, I thought this one would be a good closer nonetheless. John Betjeman was, amongst other things, poet laureate of Great Britain in the 1970s, and I think through the early 80s as well. And he was a important figure also in the, I guess you could say, scene of English Christianity, Anglicanism. He was a famous spokesman for his church. He was an associate of a number of other literary figures of the time, either because he was their student, like C.S. Lewis, or a friend, Evelyn Waugh. There's a funny story that Waugh, sometimes during the holidays, would send John Betjeman a Christmas card with some really grisly illustration of hell on it. And the simple reading would be, "Hell awaits, Merry Christmas, Evelyn." I don't know what he meant by that, but knowing Evelyn Waugh was probably something outrageously funny. Anyhow, so this poem, Christmas, I selected it because, on the one hand, it's a really sweet-natured poem without being sappy or sentimental, and it captures the, I think, very real experience of Christmas as a time that is at once magical and also sometimes kind of dreary and prosaic seeming, so far as the modern man or woman's experience of it goes. And this poem makes the latter aspects of Christmas, I think, seem worthwhile, given what Christmas is really about. So yes, I mean, one has to travel, one has to host relatives arriving. You don't always get the right present for someone. You don't always receive the right present from someone. Sometimes the Christmas turkey turns out to be overdone or something like that. And there's a million small and large things that can go wrong this season, probably some of which all of us have experienced. Nonetheless, though, all of that pales in comparison to what, or I should say, to whom the season itself commemorates. So, this poem, Christmas, by John Betjeman, this was written in 1954. Some of the cultural references in it might seem a bit strange to us. In the second line, he mentions something called a Tortoise stove, and that is a old-fashioned wood-burning stove, which was originally designed in the 19th century. It's something you associate more with Victorian-era English houses than the ones which, would have been around in the post-war era when Betjeman was writing this. But Betjeman's England always seems a little bit older than it really was when he was writing. Betjeman was, I think he had kind of a nostalgic streak in him. And the England of his childhood, and even before his childhood, was one which occurs fairly frequently in his poems. He was himself an admirer of 19th century architecture, the Gothic revival, and was, amongst other things, a frequent member of preservation committees for some of the older public buildings, churches, and the like, which were endangered by various factors during the mid-20th century. Anyway, all that to one side. Let me read you Christmas by John Betjeman. The bells of waiting Advent ring. The tortoise stove is lit again, and lamp oil light across the night has caught the streaks of winter rain in many a stained glass window sheen from Crimson Lake to Hooker's Green. The holly in the windy hedge, and round the Manor House the yew will soon be stripped to deck the ledge, the altar, font, and arch and pew, so that the villagers can say, the church looks nice on Christmas Day. Provincial public houses blaze, corporation tramcars clang. On lighted tenements I gaze, where paper decorations hang, and bunting in the red town hall says, Merry Christmas to you all. And London shops on Christmas Eve are strung with silver bells and flowers, as hurrying clerks the city leave to pigeon-haunted classic towers, and marbled clouds go scudding by the many-steepled London sky. And girls in slacks remember dad, and oafish louts remember mom, and sleepless children's hearts are glad, and Christmas morning bells say, come, even to shining ones who dwell safe in the Dorchester Hotel. And is it true? And is it true, this most tremendous tale of all, seen in a stained glass window's hue, a baby in an ox's stall, the maker of the stars and sea, become a child on earth for me? And is it true? For if it is, no loving fingers tying strings around those tissued fripperies, the sweet and silly Christmas things, bath salts and inexpensive scent, and hideous tie so kindly meant. No love that in a family dwells, no caroling in frosty air, nor all the steeple-shaking bells can with this single truth compare, that God was man in Palestine and lives today in bread and wine. One of the great things I think about this poem is the turn he makes from all of these seemingly boring, obviously mundane details about the season, the Christmas advertisements on the side of the bus or tram car in this case, the sometimes kind of banal decorations you see on public buildings, and the sort of cursory wishing of Merry Christmas from strangers. All that, though, all of that is sort of thrust aside when he brings us to the sticking point with the question, and is it true? And I especially like how he precedes that with a picture of not a family, but a wide, almost countless number of families where the members of it, yes, they love each other, but they also, they also have their baggage, their issues. You have the girls in slacks and the oafish louts. You get the impression that this is kind of maybe a cranky middle-aged person's sort of cutting remark at the younger generation. And girls in slacks remember dad, and oafish louts remember mom, and sleepless children's hearts are glad, and Christmas morning bells say come, even to shining ones who dwell safe in the Dorchester Hotel. And the Dorchester Hotel, by the way, which is still in business, was an Art Deco hotel first built around the, I want to say, late 20s or 1930s. and it was famous as a haunt of the wealthy, the famous, the celebrated. A lot of Betjeman's fellow writers made it sort of a popular place for literary people to congregate. Somerset Maugham and Cecil Day Lewis and others. And so going though from this kind of ritzy hotel, and is it true? And is it true? This most tremendous tale of all, seen in a stained glass window's hue, a baby in an ox's stall, the maker of the stars and sea, become a child on earth for me. And then in the next stanza, where he mentions the frivolous gifts, the tissued fripperies, his wonderful description, cheap perfume, bath salts, an ugly tie that some, forgive me here, but I'm thinking probably female relative selected for you. These things don't mean, well, not that they don't mean anything. I shouldn't say that. They become more significant. They become perhaps in a way more meaningful because of what they remind us of and what they, in their small and sometimes silly ways, commemorate. No love that in a family dwells, no caroling in frosty air, nor all the steeple-shaking bells can with this single truth compare, that God was man in Palestine and lives today in bread and wine. This has been the Well-Read Poem. Thank you all very much. I'll see you next season.
This has been The Well-Read Poem with poet Thomas Banks, brought to you by the Literary Life podcast. For show notes and the text of the poem, visit theliterary.life. To find out more about Thomas Banks and the poetry resources he offers, go to houseofhumaneletters.com. This podcast is patron-supported. Visit patreon.com/theliterarylife to find out how you can support this podcast and get additional bonus content, including monthly live poetry explications. If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review. Thank you for listening.